Hey everyone, this is Steven here, back at it again with another video. In today's video, I plan on going over the NBA sports card market, as well as previewing and making my picks for the NBA playoffs. But before we get into that, if you enjoy this type of content and would like to see more in the future, please feel free to hit the like button and also subscribe. So now that we got that out of the way, we can get into the fun part and start looking at the NBA card market. And my goal with this is not to tell you which cards to buy, sell, or hold. My main intent at looking at these charts is just to help give a better understanding of where the NBA card market's currently at, and then some of the trends we saw last year heading into the playoffs, as well as some of the trends we're seeing currently. So today is Saturday. The playoffs actually start today. I haven't checked any of the scores, so I am going blind into this, but as of last year, we did see a pretty significant increase in the NBA card market. So the majority of players did see a spike heading into the playoffs. This year, my prediction, and again, this is my prediction, I do think we will see a spike in some players in the NBA card market. So I think that a team has to go far, and also a player on that team has to really outperform expectations in order for a specific card to increase. So I think that's going to be the challenging part. And at this point, it's a guessing game to try to pick, which teams and which players on those teams are going to advance the furthest. However, I don't think that we're going to see the overall broad NBA card market increase that we saw last year. But with that being said, I did want to go over some of the most popular players in the game right now and kind of show how their cards are currently trending and what it would take to see a potential increase in their card prices. So we'll start off here with probably one of the most popular players in the game. This is Luka Doncic, and this is his 2018 Prism base. I'm just using this as a baseline. I know that this card was mass produced, but I'm just using this as a baseline. So as you see, his cards peaked in the August timeframe, dipped down a little bit once they got knocked out of the playoffs, and then they saw a pretty dramatic increase and then peaked here in December of last year. And ever since then, they have been declining pretty significantly. So currently, a PSA 9 of this is going for around 352. So we have seen the downward spiral. I think a lot of people had high expectations for Luka. He didn't win an MVP this year. I think the expectations were just too high for Luka. And then now we're also really realizing that these cards were mass produced. So I think in order for Luka's cards to really start trending upward is I think that they have to make a pretty deep run into the playoffs, and Luka has to be the star on Dallas Mavericks team when they are making that run. But I do think that there is potential if they do make a bigger run in the playoffs, then he could see a increase in his card prices. The next player on the list is Giannis, and his cards peaked in August again and then have been decreasing ever since they got knocked out of the playoffs and trending downwards. So this is a PSA 9 Prism. This one was not nearly as produced as the Luka that we're looking at. However, this is a card that is on the downward trend. So if you have high conviction that the Bucks and also Giannis is going to do really well in these playoffs, I think potentially this could be a decent buying opportunity if you have high conviction. However, if they get knocked out early in the playoffs, and this year they're playing the Miami Heat in the first round, so it's a really tough first round for them. If they get knocked out by the Heat in the first round, I do see this card dropping pretty significantly. However, this just comes down to your conviction in Giannis. It seems like half the people love him and then half the people hate him. There's no in between. So again, this just comes down to your personal preference on Giannis and how you think he's going to do in the future and also in this playoff run. The next player we're going to look at is LeBron James, and this one's pretty intriguing to me. As you can see, his card, and this is the 2003 Topps Chrome, and this is his base in a PSA 9. This peaked in February and has been declining pretty significantly ever since then. This card has gone down a lot. It's still a very expensive card. However, LeBron is cemented as already he's going to be the top one or two players of all time. It probably depends on who you ask, but he's probably going to be the leading all-time scorer. He has every metric and stat. He's going to be in the top of all the all-time lists when it's all said and done, and any championship on top of that is just gravy. So I do think that if you are a big LeBron James fan and have a high conviction on him, not only this year but in the future, I do think that this could present a decent buying opportunity. However, if they do get knocked out of the playoffs, it'll be interesting to see what this card does and overall what the cards do once the playoffs end for some of these players. And the next card on the list is Joel Embiid, and this is his 2014 Prism. And again, really low population on this one, in a PSA 9, only 543. So his cards haven't gone down as much, but this one looks like it's just lower sales volume. But again, if you have high conviction in Embiid heading into the Eastern Conference, and if you think that the 76ers are going to be led by Embiid and make a big playoff run, this potentially could be a time to pick up some of his cards. However, if you don't have a lot of conviction in Embiid, you could just wait and see what happens in the playoffs. And if they get knocked out early, then potentially his cards will see a pretty significant decrease in price. The next player on the list is Trae Young. So on the Hawks, but his cards peaked in December of last year and they've been steadily going down ever since then. This card is a 2018 Prism base and this has a pretty high population of almost 10,000. So again, this is a card where if you think Trae Young's going to have a good series, they did make the playoffs. So if you have high conviction that Trae Young is going to have a good series or advance in the playoffs, he could be a player that, could see a significant increase if he does have a good game or pops off for, 50 points. But overall, Trae Young's cards are trending downwards. So those are some of the more popular players I just want to highlight. But overall, the trend is that the NBA card market is extremely soft. We have seen a really significant decline in prices since the peak around the December timeframe. And my thought going into the playoffs, as I mentioned earlier, is I do think that some cards will see an increase in price. However, I don't think that it's going to be as significant and broad as we saw last year. I think that it's going to be select players on certain teams that make it into the later rounds of the playoffs. So I think it just comes down to personal preference and trying to pick, which teams and which players are going to advance the furthest. But overall, again, the card market is currently down and there could potentially be a spike once the playoffs start, but we really don't know. So now that we briefly touched on the NBA card market, I did want to transition over to the NBA playoffs and do a little preview and show my personal picks and predictions. So again, these are just my picks. They're probably all going to be wrong, but I did want to just show my picks and see what you guys and gals think of them. We'll start off with the Western Conference. A lot of good matchups here. So we'll start off with the Utah Jazz, the 1 seed against the number 8 team, Memphis. And another player to look out for is Ja Morant. He did have a really good playing game against the Warriors yesterday. His cards are still really cheap, so if you have high conviction that the Grizzlies or Ja Morant are going to go off against the Jazz, this could be a decent time to look at Ja's cards since they are extremely low right now. But however, I do think that Utah is going to handle them pretty easily. They have Donovan Mitchell back, and it sounds like he's been able to play off that injury a couple weeks ago. It sounds like they've just been resting him, so I do think that Utah is going to handle Memphis pretty easily. And then next, this is going to be a really exciting series, but we have the 4 seed Clippers against the 5 seed Dallas. I think that the Clippers are being overlooked this year. I think that they have a lot of talent and they match up pretty well against Dallas. I think that Kawhi and Paul George or George Paul in the playoffs, because he doesn't really perform, but I do think that they are going to present some trouble for Luka. So I do think that the Clippers are going to move on there, but that's going to be an exciting series. I'm rooting for Dallas, but I think that the Clippers are going to handle them. And then next, this is going to be another really good series, but we have number 3, Denver against the Trailblazers, 6 seed. So I think this is going to be a really exciting series. I could see Denver winning, but I also could see Portland winning. For this, I'm going to pick the Trailblazers. I just think that the Jamal Murray's injury is going to catch up to them, and I think Portland's playing pretty well right now, so I do think that Portland is going to win that one. I'm also biased. I do live in Seattle, Washington, so that's the closest NBA team to me, so there is a little bias there. So that's another thing to note, but I am going to pick Portland. And the Suns, the 2nd seed in the West versus the Lakers at the 7th seed. That's tough for the Suns. They haven't made the playoffs in, between 10 and 15 years. I'm not sure the exact number, but, congratulations. They made the playoffs, and now they have to play the Lakers, so that's pretty tough there. I'm going to go with the Lakers there. And then next we'll go to the Eastern Conference. We'll start off with Philadelphia against the Wizards. I'm going to go with Philadelphia pretty easily there. They are playing very well. They have a tough defense and a very good offense, so I think they're going to be tough for a lot of teams. And I think this is going to be a really interesting matchup too. The 4 seed Knicks against 5 seed Hawks. I'm going to go with the Knicks on this one. I think their defense is going to give Atlanta and Trae Young some troubles, but that's going to be another interesting matchup. And then we have 3 seed Milwaukee Bucks against the 6 seed Miami. That's a tough matchup for Milwaukee. Miami is built for the playoffs. However, I do think, similar to the Clippers, I think people are overlooking the Bucks this year. I think that they're built better for the playoffs, and I think Jrue Holiday was a great addition to their team, and I think he'll help them out tremendously in the playoffs. So I am going to go with the Bucks there, but then it's going to be a very tough and exciting matchup. And then Brooklyn against Boston. I think Brooklyn's going to handle Boston pretty easily. We'll go back to the West. I'll make this quick here. I think the Clippers are going to beat the Jazz. It's going to be another good series. I just don't think that Utah is going to be able to integrate Donovan Mitchell back in. I think there's going to be a little rust there once he returns, so I think the Clippers are going to win that. And I think Lakers are going to handle Portland pretty easily. And then we'll go back to the Eastern Conference here. I think that Philadelphia is going to handle the Knicks pretty easily. And then Brooklyn is going to beat Milwaukee, but that's going to be a tough series. And then we go to the conference championship here. It's going to be the number 4 seed against the 7 seed Lakers. I'm going to go with the Lakers, going to be back-to-back conference champions. And then I do think that this is going to be a pretty epic matchup between the 76ers and the Brooklyn Nets. However, I just think that the Nets are too talented to lose to the 76ers. And then it's in the finals. It's going to be the Lakers against the number 2 seed Brooklyn Nets. And I think that Brooklyn Nets are going to win the championship. And I think that that's probably going to be a 6-game series, but I just think that they are too talented. And, a lot of people are saying, and analysts are saying that the big three, so James Harden, Kyrie Irving, and Kevin Durant haven't played much together, and they do have a lot of injuries, which is all true. I just think that if you have 3 of them out there, or even 2 of the 3, I think that they're just too talented to lose. But that's just my personal opinion. I'm hoping the Lakers can actually win. I kind of want to see LeBron win another ring. But again, I just think that Brooklyn is too talented to lose, essentially. But I guess only time will tell. And that is my picks for the NBA playoffs. I really hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope that you got a better understanding of the current NBA card market. And I also hope that you enjoyed looking at my NBA picks. Please let me know down in the comments below who you think is going to be in the NBA Finals from the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. And please let me know who's going to win in your opinion. But with that being said, I really hope you enjoyed today's content. If you did, please feel free to hit the like button and also subscribe. Thanks and have a good day. Bye.